just don't apply those words, and you just say that things are and everything is a challenge, because there's a whole lot about challenging to individuals about things that we would otherwise consider to be blessings. Because bear in mind, there's always an evil lining, so to speak, in a nice silver cloud. Sooner or later, you have to go from that blessing state back into reality, and you transit over into the curse state. And once you know that all of reality is this oscillation, then you can decide that, well, my attitude is to not really involve myself in the oscillation, just participate in everything as a challenge. And at that stage, things free up for you. Unfortunately, lots of people are not going to make that transition, and they're going to be very, very, very challenged, and they're going to think of it as a curse.
Right. I gotcha. Okay. On another radio show, you said that the powers to be will lose one area of control over the summer. Can you expand on that?
Their level of control within the Anglo-American Empire at this point really rests on the shoulders of 5 individuals that control all of the corporate media that's out and about. As we see a simultaneous rising in the populace against the cognitive dissonance, which is an actual physical assault on your senses when they lie to you and say, no, there's no such thing as chemtrails, or they have their winks and their nods when they introduce the UFO gist, this kind of thing,
right,
where they're giving all these subtle messages. That is what breeds cognitive dissonance, which lodges in your solar plexus and is going to come out their fists. And when that happens, we start seeing the breakdown at both ends. The powers that be, those 5 individuals that control the corporate media, won't be able to issue orders for their staff to continue this line of control. And once that breaks down, then other sorts of control mechanisms start breaking down as well. We can't be really too specific here because we don't want to put any individuals in any given areas at risk just because we're blabbermouths.
Absolutely. 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 All right, getting back to Russia. You spoke about Russia. We had a question that came in right after that.
Yeah.
Do you think that Putin is part of the powers that be, or does he have another role?
He has another role.
Okay.
It's quite clear that he is not within the Anglo-American Zionist influence. This is not a situation of a engineered Cold War with him. You have to understand how individuals express their native core stuff, right? And this is going to sound really strange, but I understand a part of Putin that, because I speak enough Russian and have identified with the Russians and been dealing with them since the 60s in terms of their culture and so on, but also as a martial artist. Putin is a dedicated judo fellow, right? Loves to grapple and scrap and this kind of thing, and that's how he came up. And you don't see a lot of our powers that be guys going into the martial arts. And there's a real reason for that we need not go into at this particular stage. We can leave the discussion at some other point. Just note that those individuals that are willing to dedicate themselves to an art over the course of their lifetime have a tendency to be so molded by that art that they are somewhat predictable at this stage. So I would say that however raspy and mean and nasty a bastard Putin may be, he's his own raspy, nasty, mean bastard.
There you go. That's calling the kettle black there. I like it. I do. Okay. I like it. We had a couple questions here that kind of go in together here. So let me kind of read these together to you. Any updates on rising sea levels, volcanic activity? Are bots picking up certain areas of the country that might be hit hard, such as Florida, North Carolina, or maybe PNW for volcanoes? And then a second question is, can you talk about the squeeze effect on volcanoes and lava flows?
Sure, and they're intimately related, of
Sure.
course. The squeeze effect is basically, you have to understand that our continents are not giant slabs of rock. They're really thousands of smaller slabs of rock that all decide that they're going to float together for a while. And when the magnetics squeeze on the magnetic parts of the rock and everything that's sitting on them and push them all together, it's kind of like trying to squeeze the whole planet into a smaller space. And that, if the fluid part of the planet rebels, and that's the magma, and it's being squeezed out in areas that it doesn't really want to. Kind of like if you took the jelly donut and got it in your hand and really started squeezing, the jelly stuff's going to come out in areas that had not been intended by the maker of the jelly donut.
Right.
And so we're going to start seeing that, in fact, are seeing it with the new lands off of Tonga. There's now reports of a lot of undersea activity that's, let's see, that would be east of New Zealand, and also in the Indian Ocean. There's also new reports of South Pacific island countries that are in desperate straits and are starting to abandon whole areas. as in to say the whole country is going to shift and they don't know where they're going to go, and there are several of these. Same thing is true with the Maldives and some of the military bases. And our military is now having to take resources from other areas and logistics and start doing things like shoring up breakwaters and providing facilities for ports where the configuration of the undersea areas are changing. And this also relates to, you know, the submarines that are bumping into mountains and all of that, and each other, because all of the situation is changing relative to the volcanoes. And indeed, this was part of the previous reports that we had shown here, that the chemtrail issue may become somewhat moot based on what goes on with volcanoes this year, because if the planet's going to spew out a bunch of volcano ash around and pollute the atmosphere to that degree, you don't have to get up there with your airplanes.
Right, exactly. So it's going to stop all of that as well.
Yeah, indeed, it's going to influence it. We don't know if it's going to seize it up or not, but it certainly shows, and again, this is one of those July 15th to like August 15th, we should see a big bump in this kind of activity. But it's going to be ongoing, and it's going to continue to accelerate, especially over 2010 and 2011.
I've got an interest in the whole glacier thing. I don't know why I'm so attracted to that, but there just seems to be a fascination that I have with the, glacier ice and the melting and the waters and all of that stuff. They're talking about the bacteria in there, since, it's the glacier, the ice is melting, and that bacteria is being released as well into the atmosphere that either is or is not extraterrestrial oriented. And what do you have to say on that?
Well, I'm pretty sure that there always will be extraterrestrial bacteria. We know that DNA exists in space. Even NASA admits that they've found petroleum floating around, kind of free-floating in space. So, no dinosaur rotted up there. But, I'm sure that some level of componentry of the ice includes the extraterrestrial ice comets, they call them. I don't know why they call them that, but they come on in and they melt and then they refreeze on our glaciers.